Next Tuesday, I kick off my project. I've got the introduction already done, and I've got quite a bit of material already ready to go. And what that project's going to do, I plan to run it for at least 8 years, and I've got enough material to run it for 8 years, and there's always new material coming along every day of the week to keep this thing going. And what it's going to do, it's a big project, not just lengthwise but work-wise, and I'm hoping it'll become big viewership and participation, but that's yet to be seen. But what it does is it commits me to having almost like a George Galloway type regular. He does Sundays and Wednesdays. It'll be something like that. I'll have to, if the project's going to work how I've designed it, I'm going to have to upload content very frequently, and it needs to be in order to get the result that I want. So no more long absences, no more unexplained where's he gone and all this. I'll be on board every week. You'll be sick, although I am tailoring the experience to be as unobtrusive as possible on people's time and energy for them to be able to participate and engage with this project. So anyway, that'll all be in the introduction. So next Tuesday. Now, one of the things that is a big factor in it that will help keep it on track and make it firm it up is that I was watching Brett Weinstein on Unheard on Freddie, and I think that's the interview that he said it. Maybe he said it in another interview, but it was Brett Weinstein, and he said one of the things they're doing, and he brought up the evidence of Joe Biden and the administration and the definition of a recession. Now, a recession definition is a contraction for 2 consecutive quarters, and what he said they're scrambling all the definitions, and the intent is that you don't have an anchor point to commence your argument, as well as censorship. They try to invalidate your argument by invalidating your anchor points and where you're coming from, so you can't even get any traction in when you're trying to, because if they need to do that, because the circumstances and the provable actions of what they've done, you're going to win the argument every time because it's undeniable. So the only way out is to scramble, inhibit, and trip up everyone as they go down that path. So what I'm incorporating into the project is a master glossary document, and it's going to bed down definitions, descriptions, and terminology. So that way, it used to be an accurate statement to say, the Biden administration, under their administration, America was in a recession. Well, they just go, no, they've just changed the definition of recession, or their definition. Now, I'll just get onto that. The WHO, 2 things have been changed: the definition of a vaccine, and they say definition of a pandemic, but it was never a definition. It was the word vaccine appears in legislation, so that has legal weight, but pandemic never does, not as a definition. It's an emergency. The public health emergency of international concern is what's in the international health regulations. Not the word pandemic doesn't appear in it. It's a marketing term to create fear. And what they did was they changed the description of a pandemic from 2009 from having mass casualties to just being a novel disease that's widespread. Now, without having the mass casualties, well, anything's a pandemic. Toenail fungus, if it's a new pathogen causing it and it's on every continent, there's your pandemic. But of course, they did that so that they could feed off the prior understanding in people's minds of a pandemic as being scary. And it's not the description that they use now. But I just want to raise the point that the old description of pandemic, it's still valid. It's still an accurate statement to say the WHO described a pandemic as including mass casualties, because it's not an illegal document or in a controlled document anywhere, say a corporate manual or in legislation, where if you introduce something new, you repeal the old one. It's just that it's a different way, and chronology doesn't prioritize one over the other. Until they repeal it and state that we renounce the old one, they've never ever done that. They've just put up a new one. and they might have taken down the old one, but the fact that it was up, doesn't matter when it was up and they backed it, that was there. So in the glossary, I'm going to, that's what I'm going to be running with in terms of, like, a vaccine, definition of a vaccination wasn't just how it worked, but it prevented infection or reduced infection or whatever. The new definition just says it stimulates the immune system. That could be anything. You could probably call vitamin C a vaccination now under the new one. Again, coming back to how they're scrambling the definitions so that they can broaden everything, so that legitimizes all the bullshit they want, because they're not nailed down, but then you can't nail them down. So I just thought I'd make that point. This master glossary is going to be built up, and I'm still going to include, where it's relevant, definitions and that in actual individual pieces of work put out. But I really want to move to where I just have a link to the master glossary. There'll be an index of all the words, and because most people know what words mean anyway, it's more once if you're in legal proceedings and you really need to bed it down word for word, that's why you put them in there. Most people have an understanding, but anyway, so that doesn't matter then so much if it's in another document. It doesn't really slow you down that much. So anyway, just thought I'd say that. Now, as far as just on word usage, I've two words. I was out at Hawkesbury, and on Sundays, sounds like I'm digressing here, but it's all on the same track. A lot of people they polish up their really nice old cars, and they got the markets out there, and people go for drives, and they've got some nice country drives, and people go and have a coffee in town and go to the markets and then drive their cars around. And I was walking past, just walking up to one of the shopping centres, and there was a guy in a car park, and he had this nice old Commodore, and all decked up. It was an SS. It was about a 2002 model, red, looked really nice. And I just said, "Gee, mate, she's beautiful." And I sort of sensed he looked like he was friendly, just unannounced. Sometimes people aren't in the mood for talking, but that's fine. Sometimes I'm like that too. We all are. But he looked like he was ready. I just sort of, as I was walking, I had this really quick conversation. But two words in that moment jumped out at me, and I just said to him, because these objects hopefully will outlast his life. We're temporary. Objects are too, but they generally last longer than, they get passed down from generation to generation. And I said, "Oh, it looks like you're looking after it, mate. You're a good custodian." And I sort of looked at it, and this just jumped into my head at the end. I thought, that's a work of art. And I said that to him as I was sort of just starting to walk off. I said, "Yeah, mate, she's a work of art." I said, "And you're a curator." And he laughed. He had a bit more of a laugh. "Oh, I don't know about that." I said, okay. Then I thought those two terms that jumped into me in that moment circled back to, they tie in with, when Klaus Schwab says, "You will own nothing and you will be happy," he doesn't say we all will own nothing, because you will own nothing, but he will. Got me thinking that ownership, that's certainly very important. And what that is that's just your business identity, your name in capital letters, as Rodney Stewart enlightened me on. I've heard so much from so many people, Stephen Spires and all these people, fantastic. All right, I'm just going to pause it for a second. I'll get my mind back. So you've got ownership, which is your name on the title deed, your business entity on the title deed for either a car, as a registration papers, or on a title deed of a house. And then second to that, though, ownership doesn't mean that you've got possession of it. You can own something and it can be confiscated from you. And say, they could ban you from going on your land. They could say, there's, make up a bullshit story, there's been a toxic spill, or there's an endangered species and you can't go on it. Well, you still own it. So you got to also have custody. You got to be have possession, which is custody of it. And the third thing that's really important, and this is along with the Dutch farmers, where they can't curate their lands because of the government's they're trying to get these nitrogen laws through, and over in there's methane laws and all these laws that are affecting how people can curate what they own and have custody of. So they're going to be thrown into the glossary as well, and are going to be used to make sure that a lot of times you'll think you're making a point and you'll be using language that they lead you down, and they'll let you say it and they'll end the conversation, and you'll think, right, this has now been established and I can move forward with this. And then suddenly they're doing the opposite. And you go, hang on, I thought we all agreed. You see the words you used? Yeah, that doesn't mean, I'm interpreting that as being this. Again, with the scrambling of the definitions. So I'm really, in all of the documents that I put out, it's going to be unambiguous, and the definitions, and they're going to be validated in this glossary by the just common sense, reason and logic when you apply the words to the circumstance. But I'll also be referring to verifiable sources, and they'll all be included, particularly where the definitions aren't just straight, simple things. They're like vaccinations and that sort of thing. So I'll be really labouring that point. So I just thought I'd just make mention of that. It was on my mind just prior to my launch on Tuesday. I'm going to put the premiere up. Like I said, I've already done the introduction on Sunday. That'll then give people a couple of days notice that it's coming up, and then it'll get released. I'm thinking this thing's going to start off slow, but I think once people see, I think it's got value. I could be wrong, but if other people say it's got value, which I think they will, I think it will expand, because the difference to just being a truth channel, it's got the ability to participate and engage, and incorporates that into the process of the project. And I sort of think back to when I put out that I do not consent form, which gave people something that they could engage with, and they all sent it off to Ray Hadley, and he mentioned it, and that video got over 150,000 views. So that gives me hope that rather than people just, I'm just hearing more bad news, it's not just going to be bad news. Well, it's not really bad news if you can do something about it. It's just news and something that you need to address. Again, I said I wanted it to be unobtrusive. I want the experience to be really tight. I don't want to, even though it's going to be regular output, the experience, it's going to be such that it's going to be very quick to peruse and to engage. I don't want to use up people's time or their energy, and because people will tend to not come back if they feel, this is going to drain me. But if they get a positive experience that is quick and well presented and it works. So I'm hoping, I remember when I first started off my Mayor T channel, and I used to only get 20 and 30 views, but the conversations were lively, and it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun 7 years ago when the shit hadn't hit the fan like it is now. So when you eat bugs, like they're physically now starting to implement this dystopian world they're creating for us. But back then it was just fun, and I built up to, I think it was about 3,500. By the time I got taken down, I had 6,000 subscribers, but the views aren't, a lot of people don't get the notifications, so your views aren't always that high. But I built it up, so I'm hoping that this will build up as well. So I'm only getting 300 or 400 views. I'm not put off by that. I think the once people see the value in it and they spread the word, and people will keep coming back. That's one of the main things too. You get your new viewers and participants, but you want to hold on to the old ones as well if you're going to build your numbers up. So anyway, that's it for this one. You'll get the premiere on Sunday, launch on Tuesday, and I'm locked in. I'm committed. Now, there is one thing I really hope that, like I said, it's going to be, I think it might start off a bit slow, but I really want to be able to build up a good revenue stream off viewership, and if people can see value in it, certainly if I can get some donations, one-off donations, or even subscribers. So I just got to get into just get some revenue options, because I can't do it full time, because that's virtually what I'll be doing when you see the amount of work. And in fact, there's so much work that I really would need some contributors, and I know people would volunteer their time, but I think it's fair that people could be paid, particularly if they're using their skills. So if I can get enough revenue to cover me doing it, and then also the help that I need, then, and that's another thing, all of the content is going to be made available, all listed. So even if something happens to me, or I change my mind, I get hit by lightning or whatever, all of the material somebody else can pick up and run with. So that's what I'm pleased about, because while I want the revenue to be able to operate this project, the real payoff is that, I've got kids, and their futures are tied to everybody else's. So people say, oh, you're helping everyone you do. I am, but there's a selfish aspect to it, and I'm thinking of my kids as well. It's synergy. So that sounds a bit cynical, I guess, but maybe I would do it anyway. I know people that don't have kids are invested in the country. They love it, and they see that they want it to prosper into the future. So they will also go into bat for the future and kids as well. So there's plenty of people like that. So that's the investment. No, that's the return on the investment of what I'm doing here. So I just want to make that point as well. So yeah, all right. I'll say, all right. So you can pretty finish up now. It's coming out on Tuesday, but I've been dining out on. I'll just mention a few channels. I get my UK news from UK Column on Rumble. You'll find them easy if you go UK Column, and GBN on the they're on YouTube now. Particularly Mark Stein. I don't know how he stays on, but people get videos taken down and strikes, and he does stuff about 5 times in about 2 minutes. I don't know how he gets away with it. Maybe because the other parts of it don't criticise the establishment as much, but he goes full on. Everything he said, this woman talking about I don't want to talk about it too much here. And so anyway, that's my UK news. As far as American goes, 3 channels I mostly go to: Crowder and Jimmy Dore, and also Bannon's War Room on Rumble. Now, they're left and right. It used to be, actually what I like about Bannon is not so much Steve Bannon, but he has Naomi Wolf, and she's a long-time feminist writer, respected, highly educated, and she's brilliant. She's been brilliant on his channel at exposing things and the way she presents. She's a real asset, Naomi Wolf. And she, in a latest post up there, she says, she's no longer a Democrat. And that's the same as Jimmy Dore. Because, your old-style Democrats and your old-style Conservatives, they had the same goal, which was they wanted the people to have benefits and good outcomes. They just did it 2 different ways. But they both were aiming for the same ultimate goal. Whereas, as Jimmy Dore said, well, their goals aren't the same as ours anymore. It's not just that the methods are different, the goals are different. Eating bugs, inflation, not having any food to eat. I was watching, Stu Peters is another one on Rumble. That's STEU Peters. His presentation style's a bit over the top sometimes, but he has some great contributors from this female doctor on all the medical side of things. He's good too. Very patriotic, but, on the side of the people. So he's kind of grown on me. When I first watched him, I thought, I'm not sure about it, but I keep seeing him. I kept going back, and he's okay. So yeah, Stu Peters, they're my American sources of information. It's probably a couple that I've left out. The Dollar Vigilante, Jeff Berwick on Rumble, where he walks around with his dogs. He's gold as well. I really like what he puts up. Same as I found Sticks and Hammer. Again, as far as these alternate platforms, they're really taken off. People have just had enough of this YouTube caper. And Dan Bongino, he's a stakeholder in it. He was talking about how it's really like exponentially. Sticks and Hammer gets over 100,000 views. I found him again. Obviously, his YouTube notifications weren't going out. That's what they do. They reckon Crowder reckons 10%. He did a survey of people that want to get notifications, get them of his new videos. You've got to go looking for them. You don't get the notifications. I don't ever get notifications. I've got, notification bell, doesn't come up. And that's permanent. That's not like 1 in every 10 comes up. I can't get them from him. And I'll get notifications for others, though, but not Crowder. They're really trying to shut him down. Also, Owen Benjamin, he's very preachy these days, but he's the way his mind works. I really like how he strips a lot of stuff back and just lays stuff bare. So yeah, there's some good channels as well. So and Aussie channels, GTV, Graham at GTV, and PK still putting out some work. I'll have to get onto some others as well. There's a few websites, right to know.org, or is it .com? Know Your Rights, Constitution Watch, Kangaroo Court. There's a few like that. What I ultimately want to do is also generating enough revenue to have some, to compensate contributors to help out. I'd also like to, because I get a lot of my information from other, and particularly Australian news websites as well. So I want to be able to. I haven't been to Michael Smith News for a while. I'm going to go back to there. Sometimes they can change. I know the Drudge Report. He was pro-Trump. They got to him. Next thing, Trump's he's out of the picture. And he's, of course, the Drudge Report drops right off when I'm watching CNN. Just on ratings, the Today Show and the Sunrise Show, they were talking about how, they're sort of battling for supremacy. And I looked at the numbers. They're down to about, nationwide, about 450,000 people intermittently watching them in the morning. I remember when they used to be up over 1 million, and then they dropped to about 700,000. They're dropping right off. And it's because people just don't believe them anymore. They just feel nothing what they say is what they observe in their communities. And they can feel bullshit. Australians went along with this crap, but all over the world it's starting to reach a tipping point, particularly, with the destruction of all of the, like Stu Peters was talking about, all of these food processing plants in the States. They had a map and it was like dotted. The whole thing of all these fires just, and the girl that he was talking to, actually I've got to get back to Deborah Tavares. There's so many good people that talks about these forest fires, how they suddenly ignite out of nowhere. And she said, well, it looks like they can just start these fires using technology that, way beyond what they say they got. And maybe that's true. But it's incredible. They're starting to starve. If they stop food production, and there's a cricket farm, someone said it's in Australia, I've got to verify that, and they've got kids eating it. Well, I said to someone the other day, I said, why have you ever go through all of literature in European and that? Did you ever see anywhere in 6,000 years of recorded history human beings eating bugs? You got the Aborigines eating witchetty grubs, but that's kind of a different type of thing. I think harsh conditions in Australia, over time, different. They've been here for 40,000. Keeps changing, 60,000 or whoever. Really know how long they've been here for. But generally speaking, humanity doesn't eat bugs. So what? All of a sudden now, and I was reading this article on how eating bugs, I might even technically have maybe the chemicals that constitute a vitamin or something in them, but your body can't see it. It's a lot of the tablets, vitamin tablets that they might have improved them now. When they first come out, your body didn't know what it was. Technically, you've got to be able to see it as well to absorb it, even if it's chemically something that they say that it is. And that's the same with bugs. You can't eat fucking bugs, and they know you can't. They're just saying that so that you'll let them kill all the cows and lock up all the farmland. That just can't happen. Anyway, that's going to be one of the projects. I'll tell you, that's why I'm running it for 8 years, because this is going to build and build and build. And this engagement, I think it's going to really take off, and to the point where, I hope that other people either join with me and we can build it, or even start up parallel. If people take my model and do it as good or better than me, good. Because like I said before, my investment is in the future. And however we get there, that's the payoff. Not running this project and any revenue from that. The big payoff is the future and my kids. All right, I've rambled on. Tuesday, the launch.